12:04 in the afternoon here on 90.3 FM. Helping Seniors of Brevard is on the air, as evident by that music. Kerry Guest is our host and the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. And Kerry, once again, our guests have not let us down. They were dancing in the studio.
Music never fails. That's
right.
why they call it the music of your life, right?
Right.
It's all good. And it's always fun to gather around the radio Wednesday at 12 noon right here on 90.3 FM, WEJF. And thanks to those of you who join in online at WEJF.net. And even those of you who will catch this as a podcast later, because we basically, as soon as the broadcast's done, we get this out on all the major podcast venues. So everything from Apple iTunes to Hey Alexa to Spotify, iHeartRadio. There's even YouTube now is doing podcasts too. And so wherever you find a podcast, you just look up Helping Seniors of Brevard, and you'll hear some of these great things we're going to talk about. And we thought today we've got a really good show ahead for us today. We decided, because it's kind of a little bit of a potpourri, but we decided how to call it Making the Best of Aging. Because, there's all these expressions, people say the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. I cannot see why it makes any sense to enjoy life as the glass being half empty, because then you're just miserable the whole time. Wouldn't it be a whole lot better to try to pull out some bright spots and think of things that will be helpful to you? And so some of the things, because we all go through stuff. And one of the things that I think is so important, Joe Steckler, our president and founder of Helping Seniors, has talked about this idea of making an aging plan for years. We euphemistically call it, let's get your ducks in a row. The reason we do that is because for 13 years now, we've operated the county senior information helpline, that free call to 321-473-7770. And we get calls from folks from all walks of life. Sometimes it's the seniors. Sometimes it's the adult children of seniors. Sometimes it's a concerned neighbor of a senior. But in all cases, we hear what the problem is, and we try to find resources or get connections that are at least going to advance the case. We can't solve everything. Some things are just, really complex issues. But I'm surprised how often we are able to make a difference for the senior and the families that call in. In fact, last year was over 5,500 calls into the Helping Seniors info line. And so our team of Nancy and Karen do their best to try to handle each call personally and make sure something good is going in the right direction. But in the process of helping those literally thousands and thousands of seniors and their families, one thing becomes evident. You can do better when you plan better. And so one of the things that we wanted to do is we have so many good things. First of all, I want to introduce our guests in the studio, and then we have a special guest joining us all the way direct from the Fort Lauderdale area, but he's going to be here soon. But let me start with our great friends in the studio. One is somebody who has been a great friend of the Helping Seniors organization for just years and years. That's Traci Graf, who is a registered nurse, but also the owner of Avid Home Care, a great agency headquartered in Merritt Island that you guys really make a difference. We're going to talk, by the way, about how getting the right help at home can really help make that glass half full as opposed to half empty. How are you today, Traci?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
No, thanks for being here. And another great friend of the Helping Seniors organization. We had the privilege of really working together a lot last year. Her name is Teri Brant, and she's the director of marketing and, well, I guess it's probably community development or something like that. The correct title for Buena Vida Estates, the Brevard County's only continuing care retirement community. Did I say that right?
You sure did, Kerry. Thank you for having me.
And we're going to get into that because you guys are an exclusive, and I think what both of you guys really do at the end of the day is you create peace of mind for the families that you're helping. And that's really what we're going to focus on. We have some new stuff to get to a little bit, but we also have a gentleman with us. His name is Gary Barg, and he is the publisher of a nationwide publication called Today's Caregiver. They also operate caregiver.com. But even though Gary has been doing this locally in our community for many years, I think he was telling me 12. I'm going to ask him here in a second when we get him on the line with us. But he goes around the country and he does what's called the Fearless Caregiver Conference. And if you've ever been involved at any level of caregiving, maybe it's just helping a relative who got out of the hospital and has to take it easy for a couple of weeks. That's easy duty. But what if it goes on and on and on and on? And Gary, even though you've done this for many years, sadly, we only learned that this was a thing that you were doing last year. We got involved, and boy, so glad we did, because it's so important. You know, when you get on the airplane, one of the things that the flight attendants tell you, right, is put on your oxygen mask before trying to help those around you. And I think that's such a great analogy for caregiving, Gary, because if you wear yourself out as a caregiver, then not only are you in trouble, but the person you're trying to help is in a lot of trouble. And that's what this conference is really all about. Talk about the Fearless Caregiver Conference.
I appreciate that. We always say that the caregiver should be seen as the CEO of Caring for Their Loved One, Inc. They're in charge. They have the decisions to make. You know, it's your professional caregivers say, do this, do that, and you don't think it's the right idea, it won't get done. So our job is to help educate, support, motivate these CEOs. And what we do is, as opposed to maybe a traditional conference where you sit in an audience and people PowerPoint you and pontificate and speechify and laser point, and you're trying to keep your eyes open. You grab the material, put it in the back of the car, and never look at it again. This is different. You are part of the editorial component of the event. We have caregivers sitting in the middle of the room. We have two panels of incredible local and regional, national experts sitting in front of them. And we tell the caregivers, go get them. Ask your questions. Here's a doctor. Here's an elder care expert. Here's an attorney. You know, and they're just sitting here waiting to help you. And once you get that in your mind as a caregiver, you can think of 2 or 3 or 10 important questions you have to ask, and the hands go up. The fun part for me is, and I don't mean it pejoratively, but we call it stump the panel. I could have hundreds of years of experience on a panel. Caregiver raises their hand because it's all about the questions. Caregivers are leading this. They raise their hand, ask a question, and the panel stops for a moment to ponder. Well, at that point, 5, 6, 7 family caregivers raise their hand and say, you know, I've been through that. Here's what I've done. Here's what I did. Here's my solution. And everybody loves that because that's right from your fellow experts. And there's free lunch. There's a lot of information, support from local communities. We have tables. We have vendors who we call partners because it is a partnership in educating caregivers. And the day turns out to be very fast and very fun for caregivers. And it's our 11th year, and people come back, so I'm thrilled for that.
Yeah, it really is a fantastic morning out. I had the opportunity to experience this last year because, first of all, I saw the great variety of folks that had taken the time to become partners and share their expertise in terms of information and education for those that were attending. But just what you said, I thought it was fascinating how caregivers were helping other caregivers resolve the challenges that they were facing. You know, we have this expression, everybody's heard it, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, but it really does take all of us pooling our efforts to think, how can we do the best for our seniors? And one of the things that I thought was particularly amazing, because you're a fantastic moderator, how you pull everybody together and get them engaged in the conversation. And I love how you shared that it's not really some expert with a PowerPoint, you know, here's slide 42 telling you what you're supposed to do. It really is that interactive component. And I could see the caregivers walking away with a couple of things. Number one is they realize, you know, because it's so difficult when you're in that caregiving position. You feel like you're the only one in the world going through this. And just by meeting other people who have the similar kind of challenges, although everybody's walk is a little bit different, it's encouraging to know that they're making it. If they can make it, you can make it. and then everybody kind of pulls together to try to see, like, well, if somebody presents a problem, how could we maybe address this? I thought it was a fantastic experience, Gary.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. In Philly a bunch of years ago, we had the indomitable Della Reese, who I adored. Wow. She came to a few of our events, and she was on the stage with me, and we were answering questions from caregivers. And the caregiver stood up and said, I'm here, but my mom's getting prepped for a hospital, and I really know I needed to be here. So I'm doing both these things. And then she started talking about her own health issues. She had heart palpitations, as if it just didn't affect her, it didn't matter. And from across the room, caregiver stood up and said, she was explaining where she lived. I know where you live. I live in that same community, and I'm going to help you from now on. And the place exploded into applause. The next year, we were on Mainline in Philly, and the two of them were sitting together, and I had them both come up on the panel and explain what they created for their community. So that's always such a fun thing for me.
Yeah. Well, I love how you put this thing together. It's going to be Thursday. It's April 25th. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And it's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and you hold it on the campus of Ascension Catholic Church, so it's easy to get to. It's right there on US 1 in Melbourne. Beautiful place to hold it. They always host it with excellence, and you always create an environment that's so good for education and affirmation and strengthening for each of the caregivers that's there. And what I love about it is that you make it free for caregivers. They got enough on their plate, and you just make this possible for them, including the lunch that's there. If somebody wants to get involved in this and says, I'm going to clear my schedule, I want to be there, Thursday, we're talking about Thursday morning, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., April 25th, at Ascension Catholic Community right there on US 1 in Melbourne. How do they do that, Gary?
Well, I mean, you can walk in, but we'd much prefer you contact us, get a ticket. You'll have get a badge and a bag. Will be prepared for you. And you can either go to caregiver.com, just one word, caregiver, and you'll see how to register for this particular event. Or you could actually call Kathy, who's the most pleasant person in my office, and that includes me. She's terrific. And it's 954-362-8126.
All right. Well, thank you, Gary, for spending a few minutes. I know you're busy organizing everything, getting ready for that great Fearless Caregiver Conference Thursday, April 25th at Ascension Catholic Community on their campus there, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please get involved in that. It really could alter how things are going for you. You know, there's good resources out there. You just got to take advantage of them. Gary, thanks for being here. Again, if you need more information on that, call Nancy or Karen at 321-473-7770. We'll make sure you get connected to that. But, Gary, looking forward to seeing you then in about a week.
Always looking forward to seeing you, and thank you for all that you do for Melbourne caregivers.
All right. Thanks, Gary. God bless you.
Take care.
All right. So, Traci, you are involved. When we talk about caregiving, you understand this because of the day-to-day work that you guys do with Avid Home Care. I mean, this is what you do. You come in alongside, and you're helping the family with their loved one. Sometimes it could be a senior who's literally on their own. But, I mean, talk a little bit about this Fearless Caregiver Conference is just a great thing because I think it strengthens and reinforces everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And I my agency doesn't have the same business model as typical non-skilled agencies. You understand that.
Yeah.
And the reason is it was created from the ground up out of a need that I saw as a skilled nurse in the community.
Right.
And some of it was just common sense. I don't. There's nobody to come give somebody a shower. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
If it keeps somebody out of the hospital from having recurrent infections, So there isn't. We're still the only ones.
Wow.
Since 2017. So, we were very fortunate and blessed that our entire business model is based on making care as affordable as we can.
Yeah.
You've heard me say it multiple times that I don't, I look at it like this. I'm in for the long haul. I plan on retiring from what I'm doing maybe someday and having my son take over the business. Yeah. But I don't see where it benefits my community to exhaust people's resources early.
Yeah.
So say they need a little bit of help. Well, most agencies are 3 and 4 hour minimums.
Yeah.
And very honestly, most of their rates are higher than mine. Yeah. Many of the corporate and chains and franchises, they have high franchise fees. They have high marketing costs. We don't do that. I don't spend money on marketing other than writing articles for a couple people. But the whole point is that we are committed to giving this community that we live in affordable professional care. What I witnessed working in skilled nursing was that most of the care that came from agencies like mine was cookie cutter, very expensive, and very honestly unprofessional.
Yeah.
So, it was frustrating, and that meant that people wouldn't keep using it. And I would get you back as a Medicare nurse again 3 months later, and I have 60 days of documentation to justify my being there, and you say something to me like I only need the CNA. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh. So, we are committed to making people's money last as long as it can. By not enforcing hourly minimums or obligations to them in the beginning when they first come to us. I know one thing about my clients is they're all elderly and they're all going to need more care at some point.
Yeah.
Whether they choose to go into a facility like Buena Vida or they choose to increase home care, will increase incrementally as they need it. Because I've had clients live to be over 100, and if I had been enforcing hourly minimums, I don't know that they would have been able to afford it.
This is something Joe Steckler, our president founder, has talked a lot. He calls it elements of care, and he says it's very important that you determine what you need so that it's cost effective for the time that you're there. There's an elder law attorney that we do a lot of work with. His name is Bill Johnson. He's a board certified elder law attorney. And he says, Kerry, he said, he always quotes this from like a U.S. News article a couple of years ago. He said he was asking, people who were retiring what's on their mind. And so stuff like, where I want a vacation, where I'm going to go play golf, all these things. He goes, like someplace around number 18 on that list is, my health care. And he goes, oftentimes life doesn't let that happen that way. And so that's why Joe talks about you've got to be careful to think about this over your lifetime. So like, how much money am I spending now? Because I'm probably going to have to spend some more later. Is my resources going to allow me to do that effectively, or am I going to blow it all up front and then have a real problem? Because I think another point, and I want to get Teri Brant in on this conversation, because you as Buena Vida continuing care retirement community, you guys are both seeing people live into their hundreds. This is not an odd thing like it used to be.
Not in Florida.
Yeah.
Here they live longer than in Pennsylvania, where I'm from.
Teri.
It's the good care, right? It's
sunshine
and the good life, for sure. And I just threw that little plug in. Did you catch that? The good life. Buena Vida. I think what we look at, and to your point, that people are outliving their assets.
Yes.
And that's what we look at very seriously at Buena Vida. We look at what kind of lifestyle they can afford right now, but 75% of our residents are going to pay less when they need those levels of care. The crisis in our area is that in assisted living, residents are outliving their money. So they are having to leave those assisted livings, and the options are not there to take care of them when they have no more money.
Right.
And so planning is key. But when you're when you're looking and you're saying, oh, I don't want to live there, I don't want to live there, maybe I'll live there, you really need to plan ahead and look at what those communities offer, facilities, if you will, some of them. Our community is looking long term. We're going to take care of you from the day one to the end of life. And our residents know what they're going to pay and know that they can afford to be there. And that is so important to me. That is my passion. When I talk to people, it scares me to death that people are choosing places that they are not going to be able to stay in.
I know.
And then what's going to happen?
And they're just saying, well, I might not live that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, no, well, that's
It's not our choice.
I met a 90-year-old yesterday that is a client now, and we spent an hour and a half debating rate and what kind of help they need. Right. And I can tell you for sure they need more help than they agreed to. So, you know, I don't know what to do in that situation, but I did say to the gentleman, he's 90 years old. He's already survived cancer. I said to him, what's the plan?
Right.
And he looked straight at me and said, there is no plan.
Yeah.
I said, okay, at your age, that's not a good idea.
You know, it's funny that you guys are saying this because I always think about this, you know, when Joe first started talking about an aging plan, you know, all our life we've been told, what's your plan? Like, right, when you're a kid, they say.
By 8th grade, they have to choose what they want to do.
Yeah.
Right?
What's your plan? What do you want to be when you grow up? What
I use the hurricane plan, that example that you guys say a lot. You know, I said to him that you plan for those things. What, you know, and you know, it's just, it's hard sometimes when you know that people need more help than they're willing to get, and they tell you that they can't afford it, and there's a brand new car in the garage.
They're
living in a nice community.
Or they're saving their money for their children.
That is probably one of the biggest things, and I try to tell people all the time that is gone.
Right. And I think this is the last generation that will think that way because our situation is we hope we have enough to take care of ourselves. Our children are making more than we ever made at their ages, and they're planning. They see what's happening, and so you just have to – you can't refute that if that's what they're saying, but yet we see people that they're – occasionally we don't get a lot of families in because our residents are choosing for themselves. Yeah. But when you see that younger generation coming in with parents, you see their eyes get big and say, oh, well, you know.
There goes my inheritance.
I don't want mom doing that.
And, you know, I really think the best thing that anybody who's an adult child of an elderly person can do is go to your parents and say, I want you to use your money to take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
If there's anything left over someday, I'd be happy to inherit it, but I don't need it. Yeah. As soon as I started this, I went and told both my parents that. Mm-hmm. I don't expect any inheritance, which of course they laughed because there isn't any. But, you know, but any money you have, any resources you have, use it to take care of yourself. That's what's important.
We're gonna continue this conversation after the mid-show break. We're talking with Traci Graf of Avid Home Care Services and Teri Brant with Buena Vida Continuing Care Retirement Community. See you in a few minutes. Let's talk about all the ways of making the best of aging.
12:33 is our time on this Wednesday on 90.3 FM. You're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard with your host, Kerry Fink. And as I always like to say, we get a daily double with Kerry Fink because he's also the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Kerry, an interesting conversation so far. Let's get back into it.
Yeah, thanks, John Harper. And thank you, listener, for sticking with us here at 90.3 FM, WEJF Radio. And if you're listening online at WEJF.net, welcome back. And I will say this for the benefit of those who may be listening over the air. Well, a cool thing happens. You know, the first part of the show, we were talking with Gary Barg of the Fearless Caregiver Conference, which is coming to Melbourne on April 25th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Ascension Catholic Church. And somebody will catch something later in the show, say, oh, I missed that first half hour. I was eating my lunch or something like that. The cool thing is you can go back wherever podcasts are and hear that conversation and get the details about all the things we were talking about in the first part of the show, including a great conversation with Traci Graf, registered nurse and the owner of Avid Home Care Services, and Teri Brant with Buena Vida Assisted Retirement Community, Continuing Care retirement community. And Teri, I want to kind of pick up the conversation because you guys are an exclusive to Brevard County. The more I get to talk with you and understand about retirement living options, you guys really offer such an incredible opportunity that I don't think many seniors really think about early on enough. And what I mean by that is we spent the last part of the first half of the show talking about the challenges that happen. People live longer. People that are concerned they're going to run out of money. How are they going to afford stuff? And literally at the end of the day, we already know in Brevard County we have a challenge for renters. We have a specific program we do called the 55-plus renters program where we're teaching people about the correct rights that you have as a renter. So what a landlord can do to you, can't do to you, and a lot of this focuses around what does an eviction process actually look like so that everything is legal and correct. And, you know, we're getting this influx of calls from seniors who are in a lot of trouble because of this housing crisis. And one of the things that they don't maybe even think about is the fact that you're on a fixed income as a senior, and then costs are going to keep going up. And if you're just renting your assisted living place or independent living place or whatever, there's a day where you may be facing a really tough choice because now you may have lived longer than your funds will allow you to do. But that's exactly, and this is why it's so surprising that you guys are not only the only ones, but you've been doing this for years here in the community, and you are really the place that has a solution for that problem.
We do. We're not for everyone. We have been here 42 years, and we're very proud of that. It's a wonderful community. What I will tell you is that a lot of people have the thought that, oh, they can't afford Buena Vida. Oh, you have to be a millionaire to move to Buena Vida. I don't need Buena Vida right now. I don't need anything. And I think that's what I'm going to pull together what we talked about in the first half hour about planning. You may not be ready for senior living yet, but you need to be planning on what's out there. And when we go sponsor different yoga groups and different people that are not needing senior living right now, what we tell them is just come take a look. Do your due diligence now. Go to communities and see what's there. You hear about them from your friends. You see them when you drive down the road. Go look at them. It doesn't cost you anything. Sometimes there's a free lunch. You get a great explanation on what these communities do. And what I will tell you is that at Buena Vida, you have a life care plan. You move into Buena Vida as an independent. Once you need care, you no longer can come to Buena Vida. Once you hit 90 years old, we have a wait list. So by 92, which is our cutoff, you're not going to be able to move into Buena Vida. So you could plan all you want, but you have to be ready to do something before you need it. And that's something that we all need to think about. You're not ready to leave your home right now. You don't want to go into a community, but what happens if? And those are the things that you just have to be planning for.
Well, I think one of the things, if I'm following correctly, how Buena Vida works, and this is fascinating, and it's why I say it's interesting to me, because we had the conversation before. There are some locations like in the center of Florida that have this, but here in Brevard County, you guys are the only ones who take this, I would say, really thoughtful approach to senior living, because the question is, what do you do if you outlive your money? Because if you're just renting, at the end of the day, if you can't come up with the rent, after some period of time, you're hitting the bricks, and that's not a terrible time to hit the bricks. And so the thing that you guys do is, because for a novice's way of looking at this, I call it like, it's kind of like a long-term care insurance plan, because you're kind of guaranteeing that you're going to not have to leave this community as long as you live.
That's absolutely right. So Buena Vida is the only community that you will have a contract with that states that you will not be asked to leave regardless of medical or financial changes. And as we all know, you see both as you age. And so when you come to Buena Vida, and we are the only one in Brevard County, but there are 78 of them. 78 communities in Florida. Some are corporate. A lot of them are nonprofits that have many locations. Buena Vida is a nonprofit, and we are the only Buena Vida Estates. So when you come to us, you choose what kind of lifestyle. So you're choosing what you can afford at that point. But you have the contract that says you come in as an independent, we have assisted, we have memory care, and we have skilled nursing all on our campus, and you'll never be asked to leave. So we say peace of mind, we say security, all those things that we've talked about. Buena Vida offers that.
I guess it's a thought process that I have is like we're usually terrible about undercounting costs, right? Like I've heard people who work, very good people who work for very good assisted living communities. Somebody will come in, the family will come in and say, well, I have my home, I make this much money, it costs me this much to run my home, but you're asking me if I move here, it's going to cost me so much more money. And what they would do is they would sit down and say, yes, but what do you pay for your power bill? What do you pay for your cable TV bill? What are you paying for your insurance? What are you paying for your property tax?
Food.
All these different things. And by the time you package it all together, there isn't really the discrepancy that maybe you started out thinking in your head. The other analogy I like to use, because I think about this a lot of times because we do the Helping Seniors Foundation Cruise, which is a fundraiser for us. And Chris Morse, who's the gentleman who heads that up for us, he always puts the entire package together. So when you get on the cruise ship and you go with Helping Seniors, everything is there. Like, from the Wi-Fi package to the gratuities are prepaid, to your travel insurance, to your drink package, everything. So you don't have, if you want to go play in the casino, you're on your own. But basically, everything that you need for the cruise is done. So, but a lot of times people will go out on the internet and say, but this cruise only costs this much. Yeah, right. Click the next button when they add the taxes. Click the next button when they ask you if you want the drink package. Click the next button when they ask you if, and by the time you're done, it doesn't make sense. And I think, so one of the questions I have for you, Teri, when somebody's talking about Buena Vida is when they say like, oh, well, this might cost me something to move into, and maybe that's where that whole I have to be a millionaire to afford it thing. People are not like framing this conversation over a lifetime expectancy and understanding what's really likely to happen.
Absolutely. And we do have that worksheet, Kerry, that you brought up, where they are absolutely listing everything that they pay for today and what it would cost at Buena Vida. And again, they're putting in, do I want a studio apartment? Do I want a 2-bedroom apartment? Or do I want a cottage? And so those numbers are going to be different. But when you're actually writing those down, you see it in black and white, and it's eye-opening when you're comparing. And you can also, when you're looking at Buena Vida, you know that it is a long-term care policy. Many people in our area have a long-term care policy that they've had for years and years. They've spent a lot of money on that. So basically, when you come to Buena Vida, you can use that. People say, well, you don't take that. Well, we don't take it because it's coming to you, and you use it when you require the daily living activities, which is assisted living and higher levels. But when they're actually looking at it, we're going to say, well, you own this home and you have this much coming in a month, so you can afford these apartments. And we break it down for them to show them how that the equity from a home or the money from their house goes into the long-term care policy, which is going to ensure that when they need the care, it's about 70% less than what you'll find out in the community if you waited and went to those. So wow. You really have to sit down and play with the numbers.
So, and here's another thing, because I remember when we were talking about it was so funny. I remember we had the opportunity to sit down and do a Helping Seniors television show not so long ago, and several of the people who were just around at the time when we did that were asking the questions like, oh, I know people who ought to come in and take a look at this. And the problem was you had to explain that, yes, but you can't do this tomorrow. We have a waiting list. And not only that, it has to be thought about before you're in a situation because you are being underwritten, right? Am I saying that right?
Correct. Yes, and we do have a wait list, and it's anywhere from 6 months to 3 or 4 years, depending on. Yeah. So, you can turn it down. You can be on our wait list and say, hey, I'm not ready right now. And we'll just keep going down the list. We'll come back to you. It may not be when you want us to, but, that's an option that you have.
Yeah, so what I keep gathering as we have all of these conversations is make this call early. Go ahead and explore these things now because I can tell you, when they get the calls on the Helping Seniors info line, oftentimes there's a crisis going on, and we don't mind. And Tracy, you get this all the time, I'm sure.
99.9% of the time, there is some kind of we need it right now.
Yeah, somebody just got home
now.
from a hospital and
totally
it's not safe, and
and
there's no plan, and now
Yep.
and we do, and I know you do too. You do everything you can to make that situation the best of it. But when you make decisions under that kind of stress, they're typically expensive decisions. You're under the stress trying to make all these important decisions when you haven't researched, you don't know what's going on, and you're just trying to stay afloat. Why not take the time and get ahead of this? Whether it's calling Teri and say, hey, I heard you guys talking about it, I at least want to learn what this thing looks like.
Right.
If this is something I should consider. If somebody wanted to do that, Teri, what do you recommend? When should they call you, or how should they call you, or what should they do next?
So Debbie and I work in the marketing office, and we're there Monday through Friday, and we'd love to sit and talk with you. Our phone number is 321-724-0060, or you can go on our website, buenavidaestates.org, and you can sign up for a tour or just submit some information, and we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, and it costs nothing.
Right.
To explore this, because you can walk away, because you just heard it. There's a waiting list, so nobody's going to high pressure you and go, you got to do this today.
There's a waiting list for everything. I mean, I wanted to say what you said about that getting care quickly or emergently can be very expensive. Guess what? I don't care how much you're willing to pay. Some of them,
wow,
you can't. I mean, look at the senior housing buildings.
Yes.
You can't walk up to them and say, here's $20,000. I need to get moved up on the waiting list.
Doesn't happen.
Nobody cares. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So, what I'm thinking as I'm listening to what Teri's saying about what this place is like, maybe, Kerry, with our housing goals for seniors, maybe we should be looking at building more of these type of communities rather than trying to grab 10 or 15% of the affordable housing buildings that are being built, where the rent is going to go up.
Yeah.
The one man that we were involved with, Daniel, I heard that he just got a slight increase in his Social Security, so his rent at Westminster went up a little bit. I said, but it's always going to maintain you in that percentage,
ratio, right?
That ratio.
And that's what we do as well.
I mean, that's the way in the world we're in right now, they really have to pay attention to that. And like you said, calling when things are, it's just
good.
You should call when things are calm and good, and you might see, some problems headed towards you in the future, but it's better to do it early.
This is why our real little thing that we keep pushing out in the community, we joke about it, because whenever we do stuff over at Buena Vida, you're always really good, Teri, about putting out the let's get your ducks in a row thing, because that is our battle cry, right?
Absolutely.
And there's two things that we've added to that, as you guys know. The first is, don't try this on your own.
No.
I mean, so you can call people who are real experts on this subject matter and take in good counsel. And then you're still the decision maker. You decide what you want to do.
Right.
But now you are armed with facts at a time when you can contemplate and say, this is what seems best for me now, because you've gotten good advice and tried to figure it out. The other thing that we added as a corollary this year to it was, don't be an ostrich. Don't stick your head in the sand, because this does not get better by waiting. In fact, Teri, like we're talking about, if you wait too long, even if you had the resources, wanted to do this, it's not going to be possible for you to do this, right?
Well, and that's what we're seeing. People that have been in this area a long time know Buena Vida, but now they're 92, 93, and they're like, I'm ready. And we're like, we're really sorry. So again, like you said, Tracy, it doesn't matter how much money they have. Right. We have a wait list. We have an age
limit to your areas of care.
I don't want to say
that
limit.
How it is?
No, they come in as independent. I mean, we have residents that are there that are 104 years old.
In the independent area?
We have 100 this year in independent. She needs no care.
Yeah,
Wow.
if she doesn't
She's
need it,
living
she
by
doesn't need
herself.
it.
She's
Right.
doing awesome. If they needed care, they go to assisted. Or have
Right.
in-home come in to
Right.
their independent. It's up to them and what they can afford at that point. If they have a long-term care policy outside of Buena Vida, a lot of our residents stay in independent and then have that care come
Yep.
in and take care of them, and they never have to leave their independent home.
Nice.
Wow.
So, that's another option that we talk about when we're sitting with these prospects and with these clients, to just let them know what their options are.
And Traci, isn't that part of the thought process that you see too? Is you really prefer? I mean, I know you guys will try to move heaven and earth and get some help in at the right time. That's going to make a difference, because that's just who you are and what you as Avid Home Care do. But isn't it much your preference if somebody calls and says, "Well, I think it's getting tougher and tougher for us to handle this," or "Mom can't handle this"? What do you can we do a roadmap? I mean, that probably you're like, thank God you're thinking ahead, right?
Yeah, because it's obviously it's much easier for us to properly staff it, properly, the whole thing if we have some time to schedule and coordinate. And a lot of times, I've said many times, I meet clients that really need other resources outside of us.
Yeah.
And, it takes a little time to pull those kind of resources in, whether it be a skilled nursing agency or physical therapy or hospice.
Yeah.
You know me, I will drop the hospice word quickly. And people are sometimes shocked that I'm like, this has nothing to do with how long I expect you to live. And they're going to come in and talk to you about 6 months life expectancy. Just ignore it, because they're going to recert you every 6 months. And if you're good, they're going to discharge you.
Yeah.
So, and you can go on and off. So, I mean, it's just about how to learn how to use the resources that are there for them, that they don't think about how they can use them. I will say that one of the hospice companies told me recently that they're seeing a trend in the primary care doctors holding on to the elderly patients who would qualify for hospice rather than referring them, because they, once they refer them, they lose them as a patient.
Right.
And because I said to him one time, what is going on? You've referred like 10 hospice people to me and they've died within like days. This is not normal. Yeah. I had a couple of them that were on for years. They were threatening to be kicked off. And that's what he told me.
Wow. Interesting stuff, because, that's, again, back to this point about, so Nancy Deerdorf, who's our operations director, and she headlines, headquarters, whatever you want to call it, everything we do with the phone lines and things like that. Her background, like yours, Traci, as you know, is registered nurse as well. And she has this expression, which I think is so appropriate. She says, how do you know what you don't know? Because most of this stuff you're hitting for like the first time. Like, okay, somebody's being discharged from a hospital. Clearly, there's going to be more help involved. We don't know what. We don't even necessarily know the right questions to ask.
Right.
So you've got to sit down with somebody who really does have the expertise and allow them to guide you. And another, I always get on this diatribe too, because there are, people will sit, especially seniors, will sit and watch TV. And they'll look at somebody that they know and respect from television who tells them to call this 800 number about insert whatever you want here. It could be your insurance. It could be your home care. It could be your place where mom or dad should stay. It could be about a reverse mortgage. You're going to get all this advice from people sitting in Idaho, on a call center telling you what to do, as opposed to picking up the phone and meeting your neighbor, somebody who lives in the community, who not only understands what it's like to live in Brevard County, but is really equipped to help you figure out what resources are right for you right here locally.
Well, within, after I guess maybe the second year of me doing this, I realized that, I had a lot of clients who made bad decisions.
Yep.
As they aged, and they got dragged around by the medical field, and I have a hard time with that. Yeah. So that is when I decided that I was going to offer, and I talked to each new client about it, that I offer, what's called care management for no cost. Mm-hmm. And many of them I say, your best bet is to really not make a move without at least talking to me first. Yeah. Because it's such a confusing system when you're talking about assisted, independent, skilled nurse. I mean, it is, and people still say the old, well, I'm just going to go to the nursing home. Okay.
They haven't been in any of these communities lately.
You're walking and talking. Yeah, you're walking and talking. You're not going to any nursing home, and they don't really exist anymore like that.
Right.
So, they do, but the ones that are like that are not anywhere I want to be.
No, and then I always say it like this too,
and
right?
You're not ready for that. But
No.
that's the wording that they
Yes.
know. They don't know independent. They don't know senior retirement living.
No.
Those kind of words aren't in their vocabulary yet because they're not educated with it.
And let's face it, people who are living on a fixed income, which Kerry and I know a lot about with these seniors who are living on, and people freak out. They get benefits that they're not getting benefits, these people that
Right.
we have been talking about for a
Right.
year. They're collecting their Social Security income that they earned by working in our community. Many of them, we can use the Merritt Island disaster as a example. Many of them literally built the community. They built the hospital, they built the schools, they built the space center, and they're living in these little pockets of low-income apartments unknowingly. They're invisible because they can't afford to live anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
So they live among the filth and the crime, and they stay there. And then somebody comes in, buys the place, paints it, jacks up the rent, and they're out. And that's it. Yeah. And people say, well, send them to another apartment. There are no other apartments.
Right. Where would you send them? There's
so
3-year wait lists.
That group of people is a huge problem.
It is, and I want to kind of cap up where we're going on the conversation today, because we are forming, with Traci's help, a kind of a housing roundtable. We haven't really come up with a great name for it, but we see it because we get the calls, and we want to get. It's again the same thing. There's no easy solutions, or it would have already been done.
Right.
So we know we have an uphill battle to climb, and we try to help people one person at a time. Each case is a bit different, and that's what we're committed to do. But if you want information about when we're going to be meeting on that, let me again give you the Helping Seniors number. It's 321-473-7770, and just let Karen or Nancy know you heard us talking about it on the radio, and you want to get your name down so that we can communicate with you, because we're going to have some roundtable conversations there at the Senior Resource Center. Because what we've learned is there is no. This is why it's so important that you give a call to Teri or give a call to Traci, because there is no one right solution for every senior. What I heard this said, about the Parkinson's disease folks. You met a person with Parkinson's disease. You've met one person with Parkinson's, because it's the same for seniors, right? Everybody's situation is exclusive to them. So So, Teri, you wanted to add something on that? Or I was just going to ask you to kind of make sure that we know how to get in touch with you if somebody says, no, I would like to learn and maybe take a tour or get some information and learn if Buena Vida is something I should be thinking about.
We would love to talk to you and show you our beautiful community. You can call us at 321-724-0060 and just ask for the marketing department, and either Debbie or myself will be happy to show you around. We prefer that you schedule something, because if you walk in and we have somebody that we're already working with, we can't take the time that we want to, but we will take as much time as you want, and we'd love to just explain everything to you. And we will talk to you about the other communities and what they offer, because like we said, one community is not fit for everyone. It's not a fit. You need to see what's out there. But we would love to tell you about what a continuing care retirement community offers.
Yeah, no, thanks. And Traci Graf with Avid Home Care. Same question. If somebody wants to get information, start exploring what options exist for getting good quality care at home, how do they do that?
The best way is to just call the office and talk to myself or my son. 321-392-3400. We're always glad to, even just give advice or help people navigate through what they're doing, But for us, know this, that if you do sign up for services early, I say to everybody all the time, if you sign my paperwork today, there's no contracts, and you won't hear from me unless I hear from you.
Yeah.
Good. I will not call people and say, you signed my paperwork, I haven't heard from you. I won't do. I've never done it, and I don't plan on ever doing it.
All right. Well, thank you, Teri and Traci, for joining us today on Helping Seniors Radio. Hope this has been helpful. We'll see you next Wednesday right back here for Helping Seniors Radio. Have a great week till then.